All right,
There
we're
we go.
on. Play it forward. Thanks for joining us today. We have Melissa Rivera
Yes.
and Samantha Shada. What's happening? And you guys are two filmmakers who made a very interesting piece called Sexless about a woman with vaginismus. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's how you pronounce it. Very good. Good job.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. That wasn't easy, and I'm not particularly eloquent at the moment. So I'll have both of you guys, if you can please just introduce yourselves however you want. No like career stuff necessary. Just like, are you a writer, director? Passions, and then we'll dive right into the three questions.
Awesome. You want to start, Sam?
Well, I'm Samantha Shada. I was introduced to Melissa here by our lovely mutual friend, Carrie Michaels. Carrie is a choreographer who I know from a music video. And Melissa and I connected specifically over this piece. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about it because it was really her baby. And I just was really lucky to come on board and help bring it to life.
Melissa wrote it, and you directed it, Samantha.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, Melissa, you starred in it as well.
Yes, correct. So I am a creator. I think that's a real thing that makes my heart beat faster when I have the opportunity to create something. Even more than acting, I've been finding that out recently. So I've been acting for a very long time, but I got started by doing web series. I did a web series, and I don't even know how I pull it together. And then I thought, well, I want to do a short film, but of something that's important to me and something that I haven't seen yet being talked about. And so I thought about this story about this woman who can't have sex, especially within this conversation of this over-sexualization of women. So I don't know.
I guess you mean within the current climate of the over-sexualization of women.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And just to briefly touch upon that, I live in New York City. So the other day we were just my wife and I walking by a train stop, and, there are advertisements there, and they're advertising 14, 12-year-old girls, that are just being sexualized. So it's not getting any better, it doesn't seem.
It doesn't seem like it. I'm glad that the conversation is out there, but just 2 days ago, I had a conversation with a work conversation with someone that left me a little, we're talking about career management and all those things. And it was the old cassette. Like, it was, I don't know.
Oh, you mean sleeping your way to the top kind of thing?
Like, just the marketing being, again, ultra sexual and just what you got to do. And it was like, but that doesn't make me happy.
Right.
Why would I keep doing those things? So I don't know. At least the conversation is happening.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah, and I guess the point is it's important to have the conversation happen amongst younger and younger people, so that the marketers who are older than these younger people get the hint that they're turning off a certain portion of their clientele, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh yeah, so it's important that we start getting smarter as well.
Yeah, totally.
Buying the message, but it's so deeply ingrained in the culture that it's going to be a challenge, because even some women do it themselves. They portray this image of themselves and they're happy doing it. So we're still in that area where it's a little bit unclear on where the movement is going to go and what's going to be required of both sides. So I don't know.
Well, to get to your film and the topic, the theme really seems to revolve around intimacy, in my opinion, to the most core of the film. And then there's, sexuality is a part of that conversation. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about vaginismus and what it is. But the first question I'll play it forward is, why this theme, why this topic, why pour your heart and soul into this particular issue? Mm-hmm. What is it for you about this theme that you connect with?
I think it's a personal experience of, having been through a similar situation. And there's always, for filmmaking or for story making, there's a part of it that's fictionalized. So it wasn't exactly like it happened in the film, but just having had that experience when I was younger, and coming out of it, what it was like and what I had to learn about myself. This is my dog.
Yeah, it's
Right.
cutie. He wants some attention.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely personal experience, and thinking at that moment that I was alone, that
Yeah.
no one in the world was like me. And finding out later on that there are many women that go through painful sex at some point in their lives. Because, it can be after birth, it can be after a particular experience, it can be just because you're afraid of the unknown, you don't know what's going to be like. A lot of very patriarchal cultures, women go through that a lot more often.
Hmm.
So, so that was basically it.
Yeah, and just for the audience, it being, and I'm, kind of blush at tackling the subject because it's certainly a delicate one emotionally more than anything else, but I think it really boils down to the psychological pressure that manifests itself as painful sex for many women or the sufferers of vaginismus, or can you describe it a little better?
So it's painful sex. It could be women that have endometriosis, women that have been raped. They experience like a panic attack in
Mm-hmm.
the lower part of the body. It just literally your body shuts down into intimacy, and
Mm-hmm.
it is treatable and it is curable, and it takes time. And at the moment, it seems like something terrible, but it is curable. And when people come out of that, and when the women come out of that, then you look back in retrospective and it's like, it was something that was affecting me, but it's something that you can move on from. So yeah.
Well, before I move on to Samantha and her connection and resonance with the topic and the theme, I just want to say it's really brave of you to come out and speak about it, and it's really important that you do so. And hopefully there will be, women touched by this and continue to be touched by this. And I'm sure there have been already. So just want to honor you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of curiosity. The people that have seen it have reacted with either I have it, or I had it, or I want to know more about this.
Yeah. Or even I know somebody who might need to know more about this. Yeah. And Samantha, on your side, from a directing perspective, and how you came to this theme and what resonated with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because I recently, even Melissa, I don't know if I sent you this, but I saw an article recently that was talking about the kind of offset in scientific research and how erectile dysfunction has so much emphasis and focus both culturally and scientifically, and that the research that actually has been done in relationship to vaginismus is significantly lower, partially because women as doctors of that research caliber have only become more common as of recent, just because of the amount of time that it's been that women were not even in those professional careers. So I think it's really important that women tell these stories, because then more work can be done to bring awareness to these stories, which in a way helps find a cure, or partial cures or bits of cures here and there. I think this topic in particular is one of those ones that is very hush-hush, that a lot of people don't discuss, but that is actually quite common on the scale if you're comparing it to something like erectile dysfunction. So for me, Melissa and I also came to this as a discussion about the healing process.
Yeah.
And what is it? What are the steps that you have to go through? What are the actions you have to take to be in recovery from anything? It doesn't have to be this particular disease or this particular instance or this particular circumstance. I think anybody can identify with being in a state of recovery and needing to nurture yourself through the process of recovery.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, those are really the universal themes that are in the movie, both intimacy and the fear of and the reasons for it, and then the recovery from it. So those are that two sides of that coin, that journey. So Samantha, did you want to say anything more about what brought you, why you came to this piece and this particular work and found inspiration in it?
I mean, Melissa was most of it because she was super jazzed, and her experience and her focus in the story. I remember we sat down, Melissa, I think we got like a coffee, and we sat down and talked through the story, and there were some things where I was like, okay, but how do you show it? Like, clearly, how do you show the circumstances without showing? Because you can't, I mean, it's not something that we can put on screen in that way, but how do you show what it feels like? How do you, instead of just talking like we are here, how do you give people a sense of? And I think for me, there were a few visual moments that really made it worth telling. And one of them was the pencil coming at the eye. And she wrote in this bit, I think you found it on a sort of a forum maybe for women who were struggling with this, and talking about it as being like trying to stick a pencil in your eye without blinking. And so then we got to have that image as the opening image of the film, of the eye and the pencil coming at the eye. And to me, that encapsulates the struggle, the very real struggle that is this particular circumstance.
Yeah, how do you get over that reflexive response to fear and pain and trauma now?
Well, or how do you honor the fact that your eye needs to close? Okay. Because otherwise you're going to stick a pencil in it. Okay. You know, and how do you give yourself the space? So some of it is
and not force yourself to do something that's unnatural.
Well, yeah, and healing the relationship with yourself so that you can trust yourself to know that that pencil's not going to actually poke your eye out. I guess the metaphor probably is going a little far at this point, but to work on that relationship with self.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you. And so getting to the second question, what is it? And I think focusing on those themes of healing and intimacy and any other themes that you care to throw in, what is it that you want to express, or what is it that you found the film expressing?
Well, I think relationship to self was something that we discussed extensively, both in pre-production and in production. And in this particular character, dealing with her relationship with herself being the primary place of intimacy and healing, and that it's not actually about the other person. We can say it's about the other person. You could say it's about the circumstances. You could say it's about whatever the thing is that's happening to you. But in this particular short, we wanted to talk about healing in terms of self-work. I don't know, Melissa, if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. Instead of I know the vaginismus was like the thing that stole the show, but what I really wanted to talk about was about connection to self as a paramount to every relationship. You got to start with yourself, trusting yourself. And that is basically the journey that we see the character go through in the short film, to connect with herself so that she can then have intimacy with other people. So that's what I wanted to talk about mostly. And just this vaginismus thing seemed like the perfect container for that story. From meeting other women with the condition and all just coming together and realizing that it was mostly about ourselves, that connection, that at some point it had been broken, and that at some point we got a message that got ingrained somewhere, and just working through that. And so, yeah, that was.
And, I think you're both dead on. I mean, that's that, to heal our relationship with the world and with others, we need to heal those things within ourselves that are broken. So, to try to materialize that, or to talk about it in more concrete terms, there is a wealth of, I think, self-healing that most people probably around our age and younger or older are, it's become part of the vernacular of our culture. We've recognized how important it is to do and look at the experiences that may need to do that. And your film shows that. She puts different sticky post-it notes to remind herself to do certain things. But I guess either using the film as a reference point or using your own lives as a reference point, what is that process like of, you know, either rewriting a broken story or, you know, changing something internally?
Well, awareness is curative, right? So the first step is always
That's great.
to admit that there is something wrong.
Yeah.
And you want to continue there, Melissa? I mean, there were a couple programs for me when we were working this story. There were some specific programs that I was dealing with at the time as well, and some specific self-help techniques that I was working on, and I'm still working on every day. And it's a cycle. It's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's done. It's always again and again and again and again going through the process. Yeah. It is a practice. Yeah.
I think the first thing is definitely awareness and talking about it. That's where it all starts, and just getting really, really honest. Sometimes we have like things that we do to numb ourselves. So it's recognizing those things that we might use. Usually, when there's an intimacy situation, we engage in all kinds of things to like numb those feelings, because it's really scary to go when you have an intimacy thing. It's really scary to go out into the world and talk to people, and I experienced that a few times. It's like, whoa, you know, it's that thing. So it's the world seems like a very scary place. So it's just, what do we do? What do we use to numb those feelings? So it's all about being aware and just trying to be a better person, and it's definitely as simple as that. There's therapy involved, but it's all talking. So.
Right. Well, I think, you know, one of the biggest things that you said, I mean, and it's kind of like, you know, you can draw the cycle or the line, you know, it begins with awareness and then honesty, you know, that truth that you said, and to be able to take that in and touch that place of seeing the things that you don't want to see, or give the attention to things that you don't want to give attention to, is, you know, I think a big part of the hurdle, and then the healing can start once those two things have been done.
Well, and then the healing can start, meaning then there's more work to be done. You're the tip of the iceberg. As long as you're unable to see what needs to be done, then you continue to perpetuate the cycle. The behavior would not be, for me at least, with my behaviors, which for me the primary one is eating, right? Like, so for me, the overeating behavior pattern wouldn't be a behavior pattern if it wasn't serving me in some way. So for me, that behavior pattern serves me in a way of dealing with certain things. And some of those things might be related to, you know, intimacy or anxiety or self-trust or confidence. And so the pattern, in order to break the pattern, if you want to stop a behavior pattern that maybe is not helping your life or your relationships, step one is, of course, recognizing the behavior and getting honest with yourself about, what am I doing and why am I doing it and why do I continue to do it?
Yeah, how does it serve you, and then, you know, how doesn't it, and what can you do to intercede in the process?
With vaginismus, as in many other things, it's an irrational fear.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but the mind yes. So just getting very, very real about those things. It's like, you know, I'm afraid, but it's not the reality. So it starts there. That's
and time and patience and practice, and after a while things change.
Well, and trust is a big part of it, I think, too. With this short in particular, the character has to learn to trust herself, and again has to learn to regain trust in a relationship that in this particular story had been broken. I know when Melissa and I first talked, the stakes were very high on the relationship. There were things that were much higher that had come between these two people that, for me, it was insurmountable as a character. For me, I was like, why would she still be in this relationship?
That's my question too. Yeah. Even at this level. Yeah.
Well, Melissa has had a lot to say about that, and it really helped give me a framework to work from for this piece.
Since the relationship that she's healing is with herself, it really doesn't matter. And we have a moment that we take the character away, and then we reintroduce them, and that's the time when she goes into the healing process, and decides to give it a try again. It might, I mean, we didn't continue the story. It might be not definitive. Maybe in the future, who knows? But since it wasn't that she needed to heal the relationship with him, she realizes it's her. That's why she stays for a little longer. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe she kicked him to the curb.
It's a mature choice. I mean, it was an interesting choice. It certainly was one that I was like, oh, I mean, I wouldn't.
But people do all the time.
Sure.
People stay in dysfunctional relationships. People know people, or even people's family members, or even people's good friends. I mean, having worked with friends who are transitioning relationships, or even coming out of divorce, or even going into a marriage, there's a lot of complicated gray area in the space in which people make decisions about other people and about themselves. Totally. And it's not black and white. It's not one or the other. It's not, you know, and you see it a lot. I mean, this isn't this story, but you see it a lot in, if you're looking at stories of women suffering from abuse.
Oh, all
right?
the time, yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe, you know, Melissa, to go the other way, it shows that, you know, there's more healing still needed.
Always. You know, always.
I think maybe sometimes I look back to Sexless as my first narrative in short form, and maybe I would do things different to show the journey of the lead in a different way. But I just really wanted to focus on that internal.
Yeah, the points definitely taken. It's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
And so to get us to the last question, what have you learned on and off the set, and really have you changed? Have you been changed with this film, with this topic, and looking back on it?
Want to take that one first, Sam?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't even told Melissa how much I've changed. I mean, for me, this short came at a really unique time in my own discovery process. And what you were saying just now, Melissa, about getting really honest with yourself. Yeah, no, I've been there for like 2 years now about like just the honesty. Let's just get with the honesty. Let's just drop the layers, just like dropping and peeling the onion and going further and further into what is the truth of why I'm doing things with myself, and how much do I respect myself, and how is that related to the external circumstances of my life. So this film fit really well in that process. I think now where I'm at, the most important thing is the truth, whatever the meaning is, whatever the feeling is that you're working to express. And I feel like with this short in particular, my space and how I directed could have been very different looking back on it. There are things in the relationships between the people on set and in my relationships working with people, I would have liked to come from a place that was centered in that honest truth. And I don't know if I always was. And I don't know if that reflects on screen. There are some moments that I think really do have this aliveness, and there are some moments where I'm like, oh, I could have created more space and held a container for this performance and for these people to really continue going further into this topic.
That's very interesting, very cool, and you know, I think that what you're saying is, you know, as a director, the more honest you are with yourself and bring that energy onto the set, the more you can create honest moments.
Well, and just dropping into being present in that, right? Because we all bring all our baggage. And as a creator, your baggage is there and it's somewhat unavoidable. But if you're not even aware that it's there, which I think you and I might have spoken about previously, the baggage starts to influence the process. And for me, I was like, there are some things that I wish I had dropped, because I feel like the story could have benefited from an even playing field. I mean, just to come in because I had my own things that I'm struggling with that are my shields and that are my the way I deal with my own things. And the more honest I get with myself about those, the more I can set them aside and pay attention to the story for what the story is. So this, I guess what I'm trying to say is using art as therapy is not the same thing as going to therapy.
Well, I mean, I think the whole process is therapy. You know what I mean? Whole life can be therapy, but yeah, I think getting your own shit out of the way to interact with what you're doing at hand will definitely enhance what it is you're doing. Yeah, and I do remember us talking about that. And so thank you, Samantha. Point well taken. And Melissa, I don't think Samantha heard you initially, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No. I'm good. For me as a project creator, I think Sexless was my first project where I really owned my story and started discovering my voice as a creator. Like, I think if you start with such a personal story and creating from such a personal place, I really can't walk away from that now. So it definitely is the first seed of my storytelling, making sure that I come from a very personal place from all of my work. I think that's where I'm going. Definitely 2 years have passed, and I'm a more skilled storyteller now. So definitely what I'm going to create is going to have a different feel to it, but it's always going to be coming from that place of self-discovery and what can I draw from my own life experience to put into this. And that's definitely what motivates me. It's to be able to tell my story. So that's something that I'm going to do.
So I think, you know, it's not, I think if we're going to take that in the context of how you've changed or how you've been made different, you're saying that you're more focused on telling these personal stories to inform your narrative.
Definitely.
And the reason for that is?
Your personal story is what makes you unique, and it's what makes you the same as other people. Because you have your unique story, but usually the themes are the same. You know, we all share a pain, a similar pain, but it's unveiled in those things that makes us unique.
I think
culture, our backgrounds, whatever.
Well, I think you hit on a couple of really interesting things. There's a film kind of, or just a creative aphorism, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it said that storytelling is about making the familiar unfamiliar or the unfamiliar familiar. So I think the uniqueness is something that helps people take note of something or curiosity, or it unravels a mystery. And then the similar things is that thing that makes us human that we can all identify to. So I think those are two really important elements in any narrative.
Well, that, and it's sort of that the reality that the personal is universal.
Right.
So the more personal and the more specific the storytelling is, and the more drilled in on what that thing is that is so personal and specific and unique about it, the more it has a chance to resonate with an audience, in my opinion.
Totally. Agreed. Any last minute parting thoughts?
Thank you so much for facilitating this interview. This is pretty awesome. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. You're very welcome. And it's been a pleasure to have you both. I definitely admire both of your courage and strength and voices. And it's really awesome to have filmmakers like you out there. So keep making films, and look forward to checking out more stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, till next time on Play It Forward. This episode, we've got Samantha Shada and Melissa Rivera. How'd I do? Okay.
And it's about vaginismus.
And it's about vaginismus, and Sexless is the name of the film.
And sex.
And sex and intimacy and all that is universal. So thank you, and till next time, guys. It was a pleasure. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave us a like and or comment. It makes a big difference. Play It Forward is brought to you by Digipops, where we're building a community to put film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.